Welcome back, everyone. We're diving into something pretty cool today. Classic sci-fi film.
Classic sci-fi films, yeah.
You know, we always hear how relevant these older films still are, but I, I've been thinking, have you ever sat down and thought, why?
It's funny you should say that. I was just
What is it about them that just keeps hitting home with people? Even, across generations.
Well, I think part of it is that classic sci-fi. It isn't just about the spaceships and the lasers and the robots, it's more like it's a reflection of our own history, culturally. It's almost like a window into
That time capsule.
Yeah, a time capsule, exactly. And it lets us kind of peek into the anxieties and the hopes and all the big questions people had about the future, especially, as technology kept changing the world.
Especially with tech, right?
Yeah.
That's so much of it. And we've been checking out this article, Why the Younger Generation Should Watch Classic Sci-Fi Movies.
Oh.
It's a great read. And it really dives into that. How those films aren't just entertainment. They're foundational to so much of what we see in sci-fi even now.
That's so true. Think about all those dystopian stories that are so popular these days, like Black Mirror, for example.
Yeah, Black Mirror, great example.
So many of those themes, even the look of those episodes, they have roots in those classic films. Blade Runner, especially.
Totally. Okay, think about the episode.
What was it, Nosedive?
Yeah, Nosedive.
With the whole, society obsessed with ratings, that whole concept, right?
Yeah.
That was explored, decades earlier in Blade Runner?
Absolutely. Blade Runner was really grappling with these questions of societal control and what it meant to be human in a world dominated by technology. And Nosedive just takes that and runs with it.
It's like we're watching the echoes of those older stories playing out.
Yeah.
Okay, another one, 2001, A Space Odyssey. You can't talk about this without mentioning that one.
A true classic.
Right. I mean, the way it portrayed AI,
Mhm.
HAL 9000, it was groundbreaking. And it's still relevant. We're living with those questions about AI now.
More and more every day, it seems.
So do you think by watching these kind of older films, we almost gain a deeper understanding of the sci-fi we're, bombarded with now?
Oh, I think so. It gives you that context. It's like,
Okay.
imagine you're trying to understand a tree, right? We don't just look at the leaves. You've got to look at the roots to really appreciate how it all grew.
That's such a good analogy.
It's the same with sci-fi. You start to see how these ideas about technology, about society, even about our place in the whole universe, how they've changed and developed over time.
And it's not just the ideas themselves, right?
Right.
The article makes a point about how they were presented. The aesthetics, the visual stuff, even the special effects, they really set the stage for what we see now.
That's so true. And it's amazing to think about, right? Because even if those special effects might seem, a little dated now.
A little cheesy, maybe.
Yeah, a little cheesy. But the ingenuity behind them. Star Wars. A New Hope. Think about that. The way they used models and practical effects. It was revolutionary at the time.
Can you even imagine?
It gave the film this sense of realism, this grand scale that nobody had seen before.
Trying to make a believable spaceship without computers.
Right.
It just makes you appreciate the vision they had and the amount of work they put into it.
And the resourcefulness, too. I mean, they had to come up with creative solutions to all these problems, pushing the limits of what was even possible with the technology at hand.
Yeah, it's a testament to, their artistry and their dedication, for sure.
Definitely.
But it wasn't all spaceships and special effects, was it?
Yeah.
Classic sci-fi also went deep.
Oh, yeah, definitely.
Did some pretty huge philosophical questions.
Oh, the big ones.
Yeah, Solaris, Forbidden Planet. These movies really wrestled with the nature of humanity, our place in the universe, what it means to even be human.
Those films weren't afraid to ask those really profound questions. Solaris especially, it delves deep into consciousness, memory, the limits of what we can even perceive as humans. It asks, can we ever truly understand ourselves, let alone other intelligent life?
Oh.
Yeah.
So that makes you wonder, right? How do those questions resonate with us now? In a world where everything's so complex, so tech-driven, are we any closer to answering those big questions?
Maybe not, but I think the beauty of those films is that they force us to confront them. They make us think, make us analyze, maybe even reevaluate what we believe about the world and our place in it. It really is amazing how they still make us think,
Yeah, it's like they have this staying power.
It really speaks to that, the power of those classic films to make us look inward and examine ourselves and where we fit into everything.
Totally. And the article we were looking at, it brings up a really interesting point about how those classic films, they often acted as a kind of mirror.
Mirror. Oh,
Yeah, reflecting, like all the anxieties of the time they were made in. It wasn't just about escaping into some fantastical future.
Right.
It was about using the future as a way to sort of examine the present.
Exactly. And Planet of the Apes, that's a perfect example. On the surface, it's this adventure story about astronauts crash landing on this, well, crazy planet ruled by talking apes. But underneath all that,
It's deeper.
it's a commentary,
Yeah.
a really powerful one, on things like race and power and the danger of, well, human ambition.
You know, I remember watching that film for the first time
Yeah.
and being struck by how relevant it felt, even though it was made, decades before.
Yeah.
It really, stuck with me. That idea of how easily power can corrupt, even when you think you're in an advanced society.
It's a message that never gets old, does it? And it forces us to ask those hard questions about our own world.
Totally. Like, who's really in control? Who gets pushed to the sidelines? Are we just doomed to keep making the same mistakes over and over again?
Yeah, are we? It's kind of unsettling, isn't it? It's almost like those films are giving us a warning, like a glimpse into a potential future, but one that we could still, maybe, change if we're willing to actually learn from what's happened before.
That's what good sci-fi does, right? It's not just about the spectacle. It's about, prompting us to think critically,
Yeah.
to start a conversation about the choices we're making as individuals, as a society, the whole thing.
Speaking of choices, technology.
Ah, yes.
Technology.
Classic sci-fi. It had this really complex relationship with technology. It wasn't always just good or bad.
No.
It was more like this powerful force.
Right. They could be used for, well, good or evil.
And it often came down to, who was wielding it and what their intentions were.
Colossus, the Forbin Project, that's a great example. A film that really digs into the potential downsides of tech, especially the danger of handing over control to AI.
And you know what's interesting?
With that.
We're seeing those exact anxieties play out right now.
Ari.
With AI and machine learning on the rise.
Makes you wonder, are we building tools that will set us free or tools that will, trap us? It's the same question that classic sci-fi was grappling with way back then.
It's more relevant now than ever, I think. All those classic sci-fi stories, they provide this framework for thinking about these questions.
A way to approach it, yeah.
They challenge us to think about the consequences of our actions, of the tech we develop.
It's not just AI either, is it? Classic sci-fi also looked at the impact of technology on, everything. Our relationships, who we are, even what it means to be human.
You know, Solaris, that one really dives into those themes. It raises these profound questions about consciousness, about memory, about the limits of human perception.
That one really makes you think about the nature of reality.
Does it?
Yeah, it challenges our assumptions about what's real, what's imagined. The whole thing gets blurred.
I love that about classic sci-fi. It's not afraid to tackle those huge existential questions. It embraces the mystery. It invites us to explore all these uncharted territories of the human mind and, the universe itself.
I think that's why these films have such staying power. They make us think critically, question everything, and stay open to new possibilities.
It's about nurturing curiosity and being willing to see the world from all these different perspectives. That's so important, especially now when it feels like everyone's just digging in their heels.
So true. With all the fancy special effects and CGI we have today, it's easy to forget how much those filmmakers back then achieved with, very limited technology.
They were incredibly resourceful.
They had to be so creative.
They really did. To bring those worlds to life on screen. Take The Thing from Another World, for instance.
Oh, that one's great.
Even today, those creature effects hold up. They're so effective. And it was all done with practical techniques and, a whole lot of imagination.
It shows you that sometimes limitations can actually spark creativity.
Yeah, right.
When you have constraints, sometimes you're forced to think differently, to come up with those innovative solutions.
That's a great lesson.
It is.
Yeah.
It applies to everything, not just filmmaking. It's about making the most of what you've got, finding those clever ways to overcome obstacles.
I like that.
And I think that's one of the key takeaways from exploring all these classic sci-fi films. It's not just about the stories themselves. It's about how they were told, the challenges they faced, their ingenuity.
Their dedication.
Yeah, their dedication. It's really inspiring.
It is. Classic sci-fi, it's a testament to the power of imagination and that human drive to explore what we don't know, both in the worlds we create and, within ourselves.
One thing that's really struck me going through all these classic sci-fi films,
Yeah.
it's the sense of wonder.
The wonder.
Yeah, it's not always about, big explosions or crazy action sequences. It's more like a genuine awe, this mystery about the unknown.
I see what you mean. It's like in today's world, we're just bombarded with information, stimulation all the time. But classic sci-fi, it often takes a different approach. It's like it gives you permission to slow down, to just contemplate and appreciate, the vastness of it all, the mysteries of the universe.
It's like rediscovering that childlike curiosity we all had, seeing the world with fresh eyes.
I like that.
The Andromeda Strain, that's one that comes to mind.
Oh, interesting choice.
The way it builds that tension.
Yeah.
It's quiet, almost like a documentary. As these scientists are racing against time to figure out this alien microbe.
Yeah.
It's so different from a lot of what we see today.
It is.
But it just pulls you in.
It really shows you that wonder doesn't have to be loud and flashy.
No.
Sometimes it's those quiet discoveries, the exploration of the unknown. That's what really grabs our imagination.
And I think, in a world that feels so chaotic and overwhelming a lot of the time, those moments of quiet are more valuable than ever.
Yeah, absolutely.
These films, they offer that space to just reflect on the big questions, our place in it all.
Speaking of big questions, classic sci-fi also did a fantastic job of exploring something else: empathy.
Empathy.
Yeah, even across huge differences. We talked about E.T. before, but there are so many other films that challenge us to see things from an alien perspective, even when it's unsettling.
Close Encounters of the Third Kind, that's a great one.
Oh, absolutely. A classic.
It's not just about, making contact with extraterrestrials.
Yeah.
It's about that deep human need to connect, to understand. Even with beings that are totally different from us.
It makes you think about how we react to the unknown.
All right.
Do we approach it with fear, with suspicion,
Yeah.
or with curiosity, this desire to understand?
It's like those films are saying, hey, empathy is key,
It is.
even when you're dealing with the most extraordinary things.
It's a powerful message, especially in a world that feels so divided.
Yeah.
It reminds us that we're not alone in this universe and that there's always potential for connection, even across vast differences.
I think that's something we could all use a little more of these days.
I agree.
Well, as we wrap up our deep dive here,
Yeah.
I want to come back to this idea that engaging with classic sci-fi, it's not just about entertainment, it's about understanding a piece of our history. Our cultural history.
It's like we're looking through a window into the past, seeing how people back then imagined the future.
Exactly.
We see their hopes, their fears, all the anxieties of that time.
And it's amazing to see how some of those themes have changed and evolved, and some have stayed the same.
True.
All those anxieties about, nuclear war, social upheaval, the role of technology, it's all there in those films.
And by watching them, we become part of that conversation about the future. We learn from the past, hopefully avoid making the same mistakes.
So to close out our exploration of classic sci-fi, I've got a question for you to think about.
Okay.
Imagine you could travel back in time. Show one of those classic sci-fi filmmakers our world today. Smartphones, the internet, AI, everything. What do you think their reaction would be?
Oh, wow.
What would shock them? What might they have actually predicted?
That's a great question. It really makes you realize how much our view of the future is shaped by, right now, where we are in this moment.
And it highlights that the future isn't set in stone.
No.
It's constantly being shaped by our choices, our actions. Maybe some of you listening right now will be the ones creating the next generation of classic sci-fi, the stories that people will look back on years from now.
It's an exciting thought, isn't it?
So keep exploring, keep imagining, and keep asking those big questions.
The future's out there, waiting to be discovered.
That's it for our deep dive into the world of classic sci-fi. Thanks for joining us, and until next time, keep exploring.